Thank you for staying with your world. My name is Gladys Gashande. Now, I am joined by my colleague, that is NTV's business editor, Julian Samboko, even as he takes us through a conversation on sustainable production of renewable energy. Julian?
Many thanks, Gladys. As you rightly pointed out, we are talking about the financing of renewable energy projects. Now, many of us appreciate this kind of projects are capital intensive. And the question always is, how exactly do we mobilize capital to finance this kind of undertakings and ensure that power is generated not just in an environmentally friendly way, but in a sustainable manner from a financial optic? Now, to make sense of this, I'm joined by Madam Nwabufo Nena, who is the Acting Director General for East Africa Regional Development at the Africa Development Bank. Welcome on set, Madam Nena. And just to kick off our conversation, walk us through how the portfolio for AFDB as far as financing renewable energy products looks like.
Okay, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be on this program. You know, the bank's energy policy for Africa is twofold. The first one is to support African countries have access to modern, affordable, reliable energy services and infrastructure. And the second is to assist these countries develop a socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable energy sector within the continent. And this two-pronged approach is also critical to ensuring that countries fulfill the UN SDG 7, which is access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all by 2030. The bank's financing, therefore, goes to ensure that countries achieve energy security, that they increase electricity access at most affordable cost, that they ramp up the use of renewable energy, enhancing environmental and social compliances in implementing this, that they increase energy sector governance through budget support operations to the sector, and they enhance inclusivity in financing and development of the sector by crowding in. So we try to crowd in grants and concessional financing, both on the private sector and the public side, and also in terms of the public-private partnership projects, so that we can overall reduce the overall cost of energy for countries in Africa. And to expedite this, the bank's policy and accelerate access for all, in 2016, the bank unveiled what we call the New Deal on Energy for Africa. And this targets universal access to clean forms of energy for the people of Africa by 2025, utilizing both on-grid and off-grid solutions for home solar systems. The bank is also increasingly looking at how to support clean cooking and energy efficiency operations in the countries across the continent. Thank you.
Great. And speaking about crowding in private investors coming into this renewable energy space, many will tell you that they need entities like AFDB to de-risk this kind of projects. Just speak to us about the role of AFDB as far as this is concerned.
Okay, generally, the bank funds, we have many instruments that we use to fund operations. But I'll start by saying at the African Development Bank, we have both our commercial and concessional loans with very flexible terms. But even our commercial loans, because we're a AAA rated institution, our commercial loans, the terms can be also called concessional because we get very good rates from the international capital markets. For the governments, we have very good grace periods depending on the type of loan. 5 to 8 years, and tenors can be up to 25 to 30 years. So we also offer grants both to government and the private sector, especially when it comes to as we can encourage renewable energy and climate change adaptation to energy finance. But what we try to do, we do that also for the government and for private sector, is that we have what we call credit enhancement facilities. We have the partial risk guarantees that we use to support the obligations of state entities when we finance them to investors in the power infrastructure. The bank actually used this facility for the Turkana and the Menengai geothermal projects that we financed in Kenya. Specifically for the private sector as well, we have the partial credit guarantees, the PCGs, which we use to support private sector project developers so that they can access commercial loans at better financing terms. So we come in to provide a sort of guarantee, and with our AAA backing, they get better access and better terms when they take commercial loans.
Absolutely, and the renewable energy projects would be projects which are long-term in nature by way of recouping your investment. Many just curious to understand, how does the return on investment look like from where you sit?
Well, the return on investment for any investor, for us, and that's why a lot of governments prefer to come to us as MDBs, and a lot of private sector will want to do business with us. Because when you are giving a loan with a grace period, for example, for governments at 5 years, 8 years, and then a tenor of 25 to 30 years maximum, you find that the cash outflow for the government or the investor is minimal. So, and therefore, during the grace period, they have the time to do the construction, they have the time to get the system working. And then once they start paying, the longer tenor that they get from MTBs gives them the opportunity to match their cash inflows slowly with their cash outflows. You can imagine when you're paying a loan of $10 million over 20 years, whereas against when you go into the commercial bank that will lend you the same amount for 2 or 3 years. So because a lot of times such investments are capital intensive, and so you need that time to be able to gradually invest and begin to get the returns on your investment and gradually pay slowly over a longer period of time. So the kind of terms that we give actually make it easier, and also by implication, it makes it cheaper also for the consumers because the investor is not in a hurry to recoup their money because they are paying out a lot of money on the loans that they have borrowed.
Madam Nana, if you could walk us, please, through the partnerships that AFDB has with the Kenyan government within the renewable energy space. I know you've already touched on this, but just give us a sense of how this is working for you.
Okay, as at the end of the financial year ending of June 2019, renewable energy sources accounted for about 87% of the energy supply in Kenya. Wind accounted for about 10%, hydro about 33%, geothermal about 44%. Solar sources were still quite low. It was at below 1% because the Garissa solar power plant only started operation in 2019. But definitely, we think that solar will pick up with time. Of course, Kenya has a very huge renewable energy potential, and with geothermal, with wind, and with solar. And the banks has, as much as possible, tried to engage with the government in recognizing that, in trying to make sure that we can work within the energy policy of the government, which recognizes that renewable energy supply can meet the needs of the country. So what we have done, the key renewable energy operations we financed by the bank with the government and other financing areas include the 310 megawatts Turkana wind project, which is a private sector investment that is delivering about 10% of the total national energy consumption based on the reports that were issued as at the financial year end of June 2019. We also have the Kengen 168 megawatts Kiamberi hydropower project, which was actually the first energy project that was approved by the bank, and this has been in operation since 1988. Thirdly, we have the Menengai geothermal project, which actually has a capacity of 400 megawatts to be implemented in phases. And the first phase is partially completed, which is the phase one of the steam gathering that was financed by the bank. We have the Kopere solar power, which is in the early stages of implementation, and to ensure also that energy generated by these and other projects reach the consumers, the bank has financed the transmission system reinforcement project, and also we are financing the last mile connectivity program that is targeting about 600,000 new connections when it's completed. We also have the regional grid interconnections that we are financing. There is the one between Ethiopia and Kenya, and there is also between Kenya and Tanzania. And these are part of the Pan-African grid interconnection that links countries across Africa so that power supply can be easily purchased and distributed across countries with excess supply and competitive pricing. The Egypt-Sudan angle is complete. The Sudan-Ethiopia is complete. So when the Kenya-Ethiopia is completed, that joins in. Then we also have the Tanzania, and there is also the Tanzania-Zambia one that is also currently under implementation. So the bank has naturally had a very, very long history of supporting the government in renewable energy. Since we started working with the government, we've actually done only one non-renewable energy project, and that was during the drought season. So it was an emergency operation to help support the government. Every other project that we are doing with the government is definitely on renewables. Thank you.
Now, the list of projects you've given now leads me to my next question, because a couple of DFIs I talked to about this conversation, they will tell you that whereas they have a robust war chest in terms of financing, it is the pipeline of projects which now becomes not as robust as they would have desired to. Is this a challenge you are also facing?
Well, sometimes, yes, it becomes a challenge, but I think over time that we see a lot of interest from the private sector. The only thing is that the level of agreements that the private sector will have to go through in order to start generation and selling to the government sometimes creates, it takes a long time. The implementation is not as short as we would like it. One of the things that the governments are looking at now is to see how they can use the auction facilities to see how they can get this faster done and also to get it cheaper. I think sometimes you may say it's a challenge, but I think currently in the bank, we do have quite a list of pipelines that we are looking at. Sometimes also you have pipelines, but it's the financing because it requires a lot of financing and it's the time that it takes to do the preparations, you have to do the due diligence, you have to do the environmental and social safeguards because a lot of those projects affect communities. And you have to make sure that you get it right in terms of its impact on people's livelihoods and its impact on the environment. But definitely, I think there are a lot of projects that we see in Kenya and across Africa. Sometimes actually it's financing that we are looking for.
All right. And what's your outlook for the energy landscape in the region? And why I ask this is because we have some significant developments happening, for example, in Ethiopia. Kenya, of course, has a number of projects. What's your outlook like for energy in the region? East Africa, I mean.
Well, our outlook is that there are, like you said, there are a lot of opportunities for development of renewable energy. And of course, as you know, the conversation across the world has been that renewable energy is the right way to go. We're seeing very good developments in places like Ethiopia. As a matter of fact, Ethiopia is currently producing renewable energy options at less than 5 cents per kilowatt and hour. We also, even within Kenya, KenGen and GDC have done very well. They're working with a lot of governments in helping them develop their geothermal and aspects. Within Kenya, we are looking at how we can support the government over time to ramp up the development of Great Rift Valley geothermal fields for energy production. The wind and the solar generation capacities in Kenya and across the region is very, very high. We are seeing, like I said, there is the Pan-African interconnection that we are working on and supporting Kenya and supporting Tanzania and Ethiopia. So, and there's a lot of power agreements. We have Ethiopia, Djibouti connection that we are working on. We have Ethiopia, Kenya that we are supporting. We have Kenya, Tanzania. So there is a lot of collaboration. And I think what that is doing, and with all the technologies that are coming on board, the cost of generation is coming drastically down. We went from about 15 cents in the past. Today, at least in Kenya, we are about 7 cents. And we're looking forward to the time that is going to drop below 5 cents. Just like it has happened in Ethiopia. But the most important thing is that the power agreements that are going on and the interconnection across countries, and as the prices come down, you find that sometimes countries will be buying from their neighbors at cheaper options. So the investment, the level of investment is being shared across the region. And I think these are exciting times. And it ties into the climate change conversation because when we have renewable energy opportunities across Africa, then we are also going to contribute. That's also going to contribute significantly in bringing down the pollution as Africa moves away from fossil fuel generation into renewables. And these are definitely exciting times, and we look forward to working with governments on this.
Madam Nena, it's like you read my mind, because when you talk about agreements between countries, I want us to talk about the aspect of regional power pools and how they are impacting, one, the financing, and two, just the energy landscape by and large in Africa. Talk to us about that, please.
Well, like I said, we are seeing a lot of regional power pools coming together, and the bank is actually financing some of these. The bank is also financing some regional engagements that are intended to enhance collaboration between countries, and also to enhance the capacities of these countries to deliver renewable energy at affordable cost to their various countries. So like I said, these are exciting times, and we continue to work with the governments, and we continue to work with the countries. We have, like I said, we are working on a project between Ethiopia and Djibouti. We are working on Kenya and Ethiopia. We are working on Kenya and Tanzania. There's Tanzania, Zambia. So these power pools these are opportunities actually for countries to come together and collaborate, and to look at where the economies of the scale lie in order to produce and purchase at a cheaper option, instead of everybody trying to generate their own power. And then, over time, you are going to see that the cost of investment and the cost of purchasing these things are going to level out. And we are definitely looking forward to this, to tapping into this opportunity to support many countries. We are also working with all the global climate funds to support this. We are working with the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa to support all this. We are working with the African Renewable Energy Fund also to support all these investments through the regional power pools. And the bank is also supporting by providing capacities and also supporting these regional power pools as well.
All right, and some investors I speak to will mention that one of their key concerns is the potential mismatch between supply and demand, in the sense that we might put out so much energy, and yet the demand, of course, might not meet up to the existing supply. Is this a concern you would share?
Well, I think yes and no. We have to realize that a lot of Africans still don't have energy. A lot of Africans still don't have electricity. And even the level of penetration for even clean cooking is much lower. So, and that's why the bank also, in addition to supporting like the geothermal generation, we are also doing the last mile connectivity with many countries. And what the last mile connectivity does is that it enables the countries and enables the energy companies, the utility companies in the countries, to be able to connect many more people. In Kenya today, we have about 15 million people that are not yet connected. And as we are able to work through the last mile connectivity to connect these people, then the energy that is being generated is going to be used up. But most importantly also, we are talking about the fourth industrial revolution. You cannot industrialize if you don't have energy. And if you don't have good energy sources, you're also not going to attract foreign direct investment. Or even the local investors are going to be handicapped in terms of what they can do. So it's not when people are going to be setting up the industry that will start setting up the energy infrastructure. It's important that the energy infrastructure is there. And then that's also because when an investor is coming, they're looking at many options. And one of the key things that they need is energy. So I think the energy surplus that may be arising is going to be a key, and as the prices drop, is going to be a key driver in bringing in investors, because they know that Africa, some of the African countries already have some of the important infrastructure that is needed. I think one of the key things we should also be looking at is how to cut down the costs. It's not just the excess production. There are a lot of losses that are ongoing, that happen within the energy landscape. And the bank is also working with government and organizations to see how we can support them with technologies and opportunities to cut down these losses. Because as these are cut down and also last mile connectivity happens, then you find that the cost of energy, the final cost of energy to the consumer is going to be brought down.
It's a good point you raised there, and as we close, really, you mentioned the very critical element of distribution and transmission losses. Just give us very briefly, what's the bank doing about this?
Well, we are looking at opportunities definitely to work with the KPLCs to see how we can give them the capacity to use modern technology, upgrade what they have in order to cut down on their losses. And once that is done, we hope that it will also, because what is happening is that all those losses that are happening today, is the cost is being placed on top of what the customers, consumers pay. So we are working with governments. We are looking at how we can provide them with the capacity. We are looking at how we can provide them with the funding to be able to get modern technologies that will reduce the losses that is happening today within the system.
All right, Madam Nwabufonena, thank you so much for creating time to speak to us on this critical subject of financing renewable energy projects. And we have been focusing on the subject of renewable energy financing, the challenges being faced, the opportunities across the region. I now hand you over back to Gladys Gashanja.
Thank you, Julian Samboko. Definitely a very informative conversation there on renewable energy.